My name is Matthew Boedy. I'm a professor of English at the University of North Georgia. I've also written extensively over the years about Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA.
So what got you into writing about this?
Several years ago, Turning Point USA in its youth in 2016 started a one viral moment of called a professor watch list, and this was a list of professors they didn't like because they thought they were spreading radical leftist indoctrination on campus. I was put on that list for merely writing an op-ed in our local paper against allowing guns on campus. And through the years, that list has been added to. My personal bio has been added to by Turning Point. And so I started writing about them there soon then after, writing fact checks of Charlie Kirk, doing several podcasts. But when Turning Point changed into a Christian nationalism organization around the time that COVID hit, that it hit right in the center of my research agenda. So I just kept writing and knew what they were talking about. So I became the expert there.
So kind of going all around, but let's just go right into it. You've written a book on the Seven Mountains Mandate. What
Yeah.
is the Seven Mountains Mandate?
As I describe it, it's a strategy of Christian nationalism to Christianize America and destroy democracy. The seven mountains are, as a metaphor, obviously, of seven different cultural institutions that Christians, specifically charismatic conservative Christians, want to take back or take over or to climb the mountain for Jesus. They believe the mountain or the cultural institution is run by Satan or demonic forces or anti-Christian forces. So there's seven areas are business, government, media, entertainment, family, and religion. I think I named all seven. I always forget the list. But these are the institutions that make our culture. So if Turning Point USA is a culture war organization, and that's how they describe themselves, around 2020, Charlie Kirk said this is the strategy that they want to go after, both to conquer America for Jesus, but also expand the audiences of Turning Point.
It it does. I feel like just from my own memory, not from like this is not from like even research, but I do feel as though that I remember the professor watch list
Mm-hmm.
uh, back when it kind of started,
Yeah,
and I remember rehearing about it, kind of like tertiary, and it
yeah,
was obviously I think a lot of people just early on, obviously not you,
yeah,
pushed it off as
yeah.
another rate my professor kind of thing, but
Sure.
like with a
Yeah,
political bent. But
yeah,
that seems to have really, I feel like that's a real starting point. Was like they saw that success and that kind of
yeah.
became not just TPUSA's like, okay, we're going to go after these people mantra, but this whole, it's a whole business.
No, yes,
Lives a
yeah,
TikTok, Moms for America and
yeah.
Liberty, and that whole world. I guess since you were early on that, what has been watching that kind of like I would say metastasize.
Well, let's be honest. Turning Point is not the first person or first group to come up with a list of professors. So what they did well, of course, was the
Yeah.
social media aspect, which is throwing the mob in outrage at an individual person. So, with the professor watch list, if you were put on that, and there's 700, 800 people now on it, you're usually put on it for some outrageous comment that you make on Twitter. So they have a screenshot, or that perhaps have videotaped you in a classroom saying something, or even innocuous as writing an op-ed, and they will put your picture, they will put your contact information on that list. They were nice enough to use my wedding picture, and then you will get torrents of emails and phone calls and things like that. I'm lucky in this regard that I was early on and I didn't get it, but through the years, many people have told me stories of the terrorizing that they have gotten from the initial days after that. And I think that, as you mentioned, all those other groups, this sort of ambush online phenomenon has been happening, and Turning Point has gone beyond that to ambush people in person. I mean,
Yeah.
they physically ambushed a professor at Arizona State coming out of a class, and two Turning Point staffers got arrested for assault.
Yeah.
They keep raising the stakes of conservative attacks upon higher education. It's not just
Yeah.
philosophical and ideological, because it's some political. They have to gravitate toward action.
Mhm.
And the professor watch list, as you said, people kind of remember it, and it's kind of remembered because Turning Point has done so many other things. It gets
Yeah.
lost in their collection of things. They have a school board watch list now. So I mean, they're doing a lot of things to bring attention to individual people whom they don't like.
I guess I mean, as you were saying it, you reminded me from the book, and also I'm reading simultaneously. I'm reading Hate Monger by Gene Guerrero,
Okay.
about which is about Stephen Miller,
Okay.
and it extensively goes into his connections with David Horowitz,
Yeah.
who I
Funny.
distinctly remember this book.
Yeah.
I went to one of his Horowitz's talks, and I just was like, as somebody who was playing around with early um college atheism, kind
Yeah.
of Sam
Yeah.
Harris. I never got into Sam Harris. I never went down
Right.
that road. But like he was actually one of the people that really turned me away from that type of atheism, because I was like, oh my God, is this the type of people that I would be kind of put in with as
Hmm.
as a like devout atheist who was, one of those like debate me kind of things back in my early 20s. And it's just fascinating to see whenever his name continually pops up is kind of one of the as one of the kind of the origins of, oh, Charlie Kirk gets this idea, Stephen Miller, all of these guys from in their like early to mid 30s, that he was like 60, 70 back then too.
Well,
So
I mean, he's still alive, and
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure you know, he was the person to introduce Charlie to Candace, so he has a long history.
Oh yeah. 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 It's really wild, because I think that she probably got, I wouldn't be doubt surprised if she got some inspiration from him as well. Like I guess what do you think that the like the ability for, because there's been a lot of like think tank groups, like
Hmm.
youth groups.
Hmm.
I mean, Karl Rove famously came out of like, was it Young Republicans and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Then, but TPUSA um, is different,
Hmm.
and in I think some of it's the internet. Obviously, a lot. I mean, a lot of it's the internet,
Right.
but. I mean, I've been to only one. I seemingly can't get press credentials to TPUSA. I can get it to CPAC all the time, but not TPUSA. You said you'd
Yeah.
gone to
I've
two,
done
right? Yeah,
several. I've done
yeah, a
several.
couple. And like, I guess like explain for people who haven't been to, like, haven't really. They kind of have a vague idea of what TPUSA is, maybe,
Okay.
but like, kind of like, why does it hit so hard
Hard.
for a
Okay.
certain type of person?
I do think, I mean, their tagline is they'd made conservative ism fun again, and
Yeah.
so you know, that implicit comparison is the other groups you just mentioned were stoic and in blazers and arguing philosophical debates, and this is not what they do at all.
Yeah.
They are interested in taglines and bumper stickers, and if you go to one of their summer events in Arizona or their winter events in Florida, it is uh, billed as a big party. I
Yeah.
mean, so there is plenty of music. Some of it's worship music. There is energy in the room. There's organizing, and there's training, but there is a lot of things young people would like.
Mhm.
So I went to several years ago a couple of campus events here at the University of Georgia, and in packed rooms, no doubt. And it is a political rally. So there's chanting and there's back and forth with answering. But it really is Charlie on the stage, sometimes with another person, just monologuing and interacting with the crowd so much that they're clapping a lot, right? And of course, as they got bigger, more protests showed up. So, I mean, these events are energetic. They're obviously good with social media. And if you hear the responses from kids, and I've been asked, my kids got involved in Turning Point. How do I, keep that from not going? And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's very difficult. Once they sell these events as life changing, so once they
Yeah.
go to these 3-day events, and oftentimes, I think for the last several years, Turning Point has paid people's,
Yeah.
bus, plane fare, and hotel fare to go, and now
Yeah.
you can go with your parents. So it is. It is the go-to indispensable organization for conservative causes because they combine the political training with a rally, with TikTok, with all the cool lingo you can think of.
Yeah.
So it combines a lot of things that the older groups certainly did not have.
It's interesting because the way the way that a lot of like the really big churches, it has that vibe. Like
Yes.
it's just
Oh,
that they're
yes.
preaching. They're
No,
preaching. They're
no.
not
So I went
they're
to
not giving
a pastor
speeches. Yeah.
summit. Yeah. I went to a pastor summit here in Gainesville at a megachurch called Free Chapel. So this is supposed to be a pastor summit. So, but the first night, the whole thing was filled and they gave free ticket to the youth group. So there was a worship night and it had, of course, a mega church in the 21st century is much like a youth group. So, I mean, it yeah, speaks to youth. And they had a panel during that pastor summit about TikTok influencers. They had them talk to the pastors about how to do TikTok. So
Yeah.
you can see where that's going.
It's I mean, he's always had that the youth pastor with a guitar vibe to me, which is
Oh, yeah.
yes, yes, sorry. If you could continue with the youth group.
No, yeah. So the pastor summit was directed toward pastors, but it was really putting out the youth millennial energy to pastors
Mhm.
to take that on or to become more like that. The worship night was as you might imagine worship music with a free chapel charismatic band, and then the TikTok panel that was really part of trying to push this new generation onto pastors.
Yeah, and so I mean he is because it's not even just the vibe. You which is something weirdly I haven't like come across, but how has Turning Point Academy worked its way into America? Because he's not just doing like big shows. This
No,
is
right. Yeah.
yeah.
So if of the seven mountains mandate, obviously one mountain is education. So higher education is part of part of that, but it's really the K through 12 areas. So excuse me, he has started schools. The first one was partnering with a brick and mortar school, Dream City in Arizona, of course. But if you look at the Turning Point Academy map, there are model schools that are hybrid homeschools, that are private classical Christian schools, and then they have this curriculum that they want to give to teachers that they want to use in classes. And then they have these educator summits, which they bring people that sell curriculum. They bring in what's his name? The guy that runs Turning Point Academy to talk to them. They bring teachers to
Mhm.
talk about people's faith in class, to talk about how to teach Christian classical stuff, to really push homeschooling. But then they also do the public school is bad and yet we should go save it kind of thing. So Turning Point Academy is just one of those seven mountains that they put millions of dollars into. It was just getting started. I think it was maybe in the last year that they did that, but they have a lot of schools on their map that they claim as partners, and most of those schools have churches who are linked to them, so therefore those churches are also their partners.
Is there like any way that we can, because I mean I feel like there used to be, and again this is like more pre-internet, there used to be like, okay, we can follow the publisher of this book going from this place to this place and being in these schools, and you can kind of track the influences of people and the directions at which education goes, especially with money. But it's just I feel like with groups like TPUSA, and like obviously they're not the only one, but they're certainly obviously the largest, I would say, and probably most influential. I can't really think of, Heritage Action, Heritage Foundation has its own thing, but I
Yeah.
mean, I kind of feel like I don't know, but they're kind of one and the same to some extent. Probably the same funders, if nothing else.
Well,
But
Heritage has
yeah,
tables at TPUSA
yeah,
events, if that tells you anything.
yeah. No, it's almost like TPUSA, and then you graduate and go to grad school, and that's Heritage Foundation.
Right, sure.
But it's interesting. I mean, like, is there any way that we can like I guess like kind of track like this the influence that
Yeah,
TPUSA has had.
I mean, I think that obviously Charlie had a close relationship with Larry Arnn, the president of Hillsdale College, who was the chairman, and Kirk, the vice chairman of President Trump's 1776 Educational Commission. And Charlie watched a bunch of Larry Arnn videos that are on free on Hillsdale, and Hillsdale has their own K through 12 curriculum that is seeped into public schools. The state of Tennessee wants to expand their base there. And also, I think Dennis Prager and
Mhm.
PragerU play a large role in I think mentoring Kirk in that educational realm. PragerU has been spreading their videos through through K through 12. So those two people definitely influenced him in the education realm. Um, and in terms of like, publishing books, Kirk's been publishing his books now, I think, with Trump's publishing group. So I really can't, follow back that. But really, I think the ideas come from Larry Arnn and his Dale, and a little bit of PragerU also. And I think that in terms of education now, this has been going back since the beginning of the Seven Mountains Mandate. Bill Bright wrote a whole book about that. And why education is bad and why private schools are good. So there's
Mhm.
a line that can go back. Charlie didn't invent this at all.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, we hear. everything from the right is that the left is infiltrating schools and they're
Hmm.
like basically grooming kids to be, socialist,
Yep.
Marxist, anarchists or something.
Hmm.
And I go to Netroots every once in a while, and Netroots Nation is the
Hmm.
liberal kind of,
Yeah.
I guess it's the liberal CPAC.
Sure.
That's what people call it, though it's nothing at all.
All
Like they'll
right.
do
Right.
like, oh, here's how to use a PowerPoint kind of thing. There's almost no like political stuff at it, unfortunately. Um, Certainly, and it's like the lowest budget you can possibly think of. It's like
Yeah.
bad audio and in some
Hmm.
Marriott, whatever. And it's just like I guess I don't know if there's a question there, but it's just like it's fascinating to watch like the projection that the right does specifically on its influences and its kind of tendrils into even public school education. Because I
Hmm.
mean, I think PragerU has gotten into, maybe it's
Yes.
Kansas. I'm trying to remember what state
Oh,
it
they've
is.
gotten in several states
Yeah,
with
yeah.
these videos. Yeah.
Which I mean, those
Um,
videos are wild.
yes, they are.
Yeah.
It is about the isms, and so you can sell the fear of the isms, and so you really can't. And then you might have like one or two teachers, make a comment or not allow this person to say something, and that person
Yeah.
becomes representative of the larger group. I mean, we've had several teachers, I think, get fired this past week for comments about Charlie Kirk's death, and
Yeah.
the superintendent in Oklahoma says if you make comments about Charlie Kirk's death that are negative, you're going to lose your license. So,
Mhm.
yeah, these isms come up, and individual people get tagged with them. But I really think that the COVID shutting down of the schools really blew up the educational arm of Turning Point in the sense of making it more popular, more powerful, because he became the face of that anti closure movement, anti-vax, anti-mask movements as well.
It's fascinating to why I've been trying to read more about the Christian, like I don't want to say Christian. I'm a Catholic,
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of this is always like I followed through the year. My coverage of like conservatism and religion has been more on the Catholic kind of
Okay.
anti-abortion, anti-whatever kind of world. So like I keep learning, kind of like going into this world more and more, and just being completely and utterly confused by the fact that even I'd say the most conservative kind of Christian, conservative Catholic people, they have a core of empathy. Like it's such an important thing within Catholicism.
Mm.
I maybe in a twisted way. Like they care about the fetuses as babies and
Yes, the
things like
culture
that.
of life is strong there. Yeah.
But like on the Christian side, I mean, you hear I forget what the Kirk quote is, but it's just like the idea that this idea of empathy is bad.
Yes.
And it's been this fascinating thing, like looking back in some other like Doug Wilson,
Hmm.
listening to him hear him speak at NatCon last year was like, I mean, just a huge thing. I don't, as I guess as everyone is begging everyone to be nice online, which is I think something everyone should do. It's been fascinating to read Charlie Kirk's kind of comments on human empathy and caring
Yeah.
about other people. I mean, the famous quote is of him being like, "I don't care how many mass shootings there are, as long as we keep our gun rights, it's worth it," kind of thing. Obviously, I'm mushing up his quote, but
Yeah.
I guess again, I don't know if there's a question, but it's just if you like how you've
Well,
seen that kind of happen.
yeah. So obviously, there's a bestseller book right now called Toxic
Yeah,
Empathy,
yeah,
and I think it comes from this really hyper theological position that we should tell the truth and not care about people's feelings,
mhm,
because the truth is the truth and you shouldn't
yeah,
worry about it. And this has been something that Charlie Kirk said directly. That he's interested in telling the truth. He sometimes mixes it with telling the truth in love, but it's really about just standing there and telling you, you're wrong, you're sinful, and in the gospel can save you. So empathy gets wrapped up in, okay, I'm not going to tell you the truth. I'm just kind of
yeah,
water it down. But it also gets wrapped up, of course, in DEI and some other initials that go along with that. So the stand for truth becomes their positive declaration. So
yeah.
empathy also, I think, kind of gets at the really masculinity picture that they want to present.
Mhm.
They do not want women leadership, and therefore they don't want empathy in the CEO or the presidential office.
Yeah. It's shoot. I just looked at the time and I got to skip a couple, but it's his influence I think can't be I think is people might be learning it now when they're like, oh my God, Virginia I just got somebody sent me a message from Governor Youngkin basically saying, don't say anything bad about
Yeah.
about Charlie Kirk online. And I've never seen, I mean, certainly not from Youngkin. And Trump is, all the, everybody, including Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania is lowering the flags. The fact that I don't think I read it in your article for PRA.
Mhm.
I think it was, but the fact that Trump or Kirk was the one who introduced JD Vance to Trump. So right?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think that's correct.
Okay. Maybe it was.
Because JD Vance has talked about that relationship that he was introduced to Charlie Kirk first because Charlie Kirk introduced Don Jr. to JD
There you
Vance,
go.
and then
Yeah.
it became that. So yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
Charlie Kirk, I don't know, didn't discover JD Vance, but convinced the Trump family to take him on as vice president. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like yeah, I guess it's fascinating to me, like, because I mean, I knew he was deeply influential, but I mean, I think even the level of because there's a lot of people that are like very influential. I'm not quite sure if, what is
Yeah.
it, Curtis Yarkin or whatever if he died
Yeah.
tomorrow, I'm not quite sure that
Right.
like we'd be like flags are down, but
Well,
like,
and that is a political, baseball inside baseball thing, but also that it should show you how the evangelical Charlie Kirk is making inroads with these nationalist Catholics.
yeah,
And he has done that the last couple of years so much that if you ask him, what does a Christian America look like, he would include some Catholics in that.
yeah,
He would like a Protestant consensus, but he's okay with the other group.
yeah. It was